Fire changed everything, but not for the reasons most people think. The standard story goes something like this. Ancient humans discovered fire, started cooking their food. The food tasted better, and civilization followed. Clean, logical, satisfying. The kind of narrative that fits neatly into a single paragraph and requires no further examination. Except the reality is considerably stranger, considerably more consequential, and involves a chain of biological events so profound that some researchers believe cooking didn't just change what humans ate. It changed what humans are. The shape of the face, the size of the gut, the size of the brain. The amount of time available in a day, the structure of social life. The evolutionary trajectory of the entire species. All of it downstream of one ancient human deciding to put food near a flame. Let's go through how this actually happened and why it matters far more than the standard story suggests. Start with a question that almost never gets asked. Before cooking, what were humans eating, and how was that working for them? The pre-cooking human diet was raw, obviously. But the specific composition of that raw diet and the specific challenges it posed are important to understand. Before you can appreciate what cooking solved. Ancient pre-cooking humans were eating raw meat, raw tubers, raw fruit, raw nuts, raw leaves. They were eating the same kinds of foods that modern great apes eat, in broadly similar proportions, with broadly similar biological machinery to process them. And here is the thing that sets the stage for everything that follows. That diet, eaten raw, required an enormous amount of time and an enormous amount of digestive infrastructure to process. Chimpanzees spend approximately 6 hours per day chewing, not eating, chewing. 6 hours of active jaw work to mechanically break down the tough, fibrous, difficult raw foods that their bodies need. This is not unusual for a great ape eating a raw diet. It is the baseline cost of being a large primate getting nutrition from foods that don't want to be digested. The fiber resists. The cell walls hold. The nutrients are locked inside structures that require sustained mechanical effort to break open. Pre-cooking humans faced the same constraint. Before fire, before stone tools capable of significant food processing, the human ancestor was spending a large portion of every waking day in jaw work. The jaw muscles to support this were enormous. There is evidence in early hominin skulls of massive temporalis muscles. The jaw-closing muscles that run from the lower jaw up the side of the skull. The skulls themselves show adaptations to sustained high-force chewing that are nothing like the gracile modern human skull. Processing raw food requires a longer, more capacious digestive tract than processing cooked food. Because more of the digestion that heat would have done externally has to happen internally, taking more time and consuming more metabolic energy. A large gut is expensive.
The gastrointestinal tract is one of the most metabolically demanding organ systems in the body.
This is the context into which fire arrived.
And the specific things that cooking did to food are the key to understanding why its effects on human biology were so dramatic.
Heat does several things to food simultaneously.
It denatures proteins, unfolding the complex three-dimensional protein structures that are otherwise difficult for digestive enzymes to access. It breaks down cell walls in plant material, releasing the nutrients inside that would otherwise pass through the digestive system partially or completely intact.
It gelatinizes starches, converting the resistant crystalline starch structures in raw tubers into, and it reduces microbial load on food that might otherwise carry dangerous pathogens. This is the context into which fire arrived. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham, who developed the most comprehensive version of what is now called the cooking hypothesis, estimates that cooked meat provides approximately 30% more energy than raw meat of the same quantity. Cooked starchy vegetables provide even more relative to their raw counterparts.
The human body can extract significantly more nutrition from the same amount of food when that food has been cooked, because the external energy of heat has done the work that internal digestion would otherwise have had to do. This is the first and most immediate consequence of cooking: more energy from less food. But the downstream effects of that single change are what make cooking so consequential. More energy from less food means the gut can shrink. If external heat is pre-digesting food, the gastrointestinal tract doesn't need to be as long, as capacious, or as metabolically demanding as it was. And indeed, the human gut is dramatically smaller relative to body size than the gut of other great apes eating comparable amounts of food.
Humans have approximately 60% of the gut mass that would be predicted for a primate of our size and activity level eating a raw diet.
This reduction is so significant that it is now considered one of the key adaptations that distinguish the human lineage from other apes.
A smaller gut consumes less metabolic energy.
The energy that was previously going to maintain an enormous digestive tract becomes available for other uses. And here is where the story takes its most important and most surprising turn. Brains are expensive. The human brain, which represents approximately 2% of body mass, consumes approximately 20% of the body's total metabolic energy. Running a large brain is one of the most energetically costly things a body can do. And running a large brain while also running a large gut to process a raw diet would require a caloric intake that is essentially impossible to achieve.
On the foods available to ancient humans without cooking.
The expensive tissue hypothesis, developed by Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler, proposes that the reduction in gut size made possible by
the brain got bigger as the gut got smaller. The two changes financed by the energy released by the transition from raw to cooked food. This hypothesis remains contested in its specific details.
But the general relationship it describes, brain expansion co-occurring with gut reduction in the context of a transition to higher quality cooked diet,
is supported by the fossil record. And now, you see the wisdom in it.
The timing matters. The genus Homo, the lineage that includes modern humans, appears in the fossil record approximately 2.5 million years ago. Brain size in the human lineage began increasing significantly around 1.8 million years ago. This is also approximately when we see evidence of the first controlled use of fire in some interpretations of the archaeological record. And when we see changes in tooth and gut anatomy consistent with a higher quality, more easily digestible diet. The coincidence of these changes in the fossil record is not proof that cooking caused brain expansion. But the biological logic connecting them is coherent. The timing is consistent. And the alternative explanations for why gut size decreased and brain size increased at approximately the same time in human evolution are less compelling. Now let's talk about chewing, because the changes in jaw and tooth anatomy that accompany the transition to cooked food. Cooked food is softer than raw food. It requires less chewing force to break down. A diet dominated by cooked food, therefore, exerts less mechanical demand on the jaw apparatus, the teeth, the jaw muscles, and the bony structures of the skull that anchor them. Over generations of selection in a cooking species, the jaw apparatus can reduce. It no longer needs to be as large, as powerful, or as robust as it was when every calorie required sustained high-force mechanical processing. The human jaw is dramatically smaller than the jaw of any other great ape. And human teeth are dramatically smaller than those of other great apes relative to body size. The canine teeth, which in many primates function as both food processing and threat display organs, are reduced in humans to the point where they barely protrude above the other teeth. The temporalis muscle, which in early hominins left visible traces on the skull in the form of a bony ridge called a sagittal crest, is absent in modern humans. The muscle simply doesn't need to be that large anymore. These changes freed up space in the skull. A smaller jaw apparatus allows the brain case to expand in directions that were previously constrained by the attachment sites of large jaw muscles. The reduction in jaw size and the expansion of brain volume are not independent events. They are connected through the shared space of the skull. And the cooking that made the jaw smaller may have literally made room for the brain to grow. This is not a minor anatomical footnote. It is a claim that cooking shaped the physical structure of the human head. That your face looks the way it does, relatively flat, with small teeth, a small jaw, a domed and thin-boned skull. Partly because your ancestors cooked their food. The alternative face, the pre-cooking face, was more robust, more prognathic, more heavily muscled, less immediately recognizable as human. Fire didn't just change what humans ate, it changed what humans look like. Now let's talk about time, because this is a dimension of cooking's consequences that almost never gets discussed. And that may be as important as the biological changes. A chimpanzee that spends 6 hours per day chewing is a chimpanzee that cannot spend those 6 hours doing anything else. It chews while foraging, yes. But complex social interaction, tool-making, teaching, planning, the extended social activities that human culture depends on. These are incompatible with having your jaw occupied for 6 hours a day. Cooking dramatically reduced the time required for food processing. Cooked food requires far less chewing than raw food. Modern humans spend approximately 1 hour per day in food chewing, a reduction of roughly 5 hours relative to the great ape baseline. A chimpanzee that spends 6 hours per day chewing is a chimpanzee that cannot spend those 6 hours doing anything else, and made available for everything else. By the way, if you want to go even deeper into the secret lives of ancient humans, I just launched a full course called The Secret Lives of Ancient Humans. 10 modules, 3+ hours of content, covering everything we never talk about on YouTube. 10 modules, 3+ hours of content. Covering everything we never talk about on YouTube.
What they feared, how they communicated, what hunted them, and much more. What they feared, how they communicated. What hunted them? And much more. Plus, an exclusive PDF guide included. Link in the description. See you inside. See you inside. What did ancient humans do with that time?
The evidence suggests social activity, tool production and refinement, extended teaching of younger group members.
Planning for future resource acquisition.
The kinds of sustained cooperative activity that raw food-eating primates can't engage in at the same level.
Cooking didn't just feed the brain that was already there.
It provided the time for that brain to do the kinds of things that larger brains make possible. Now let's talk about something that connects the biological and social changes in a way that most accounts of cooking's consequences miss.
The specific effect of cooking on sleep.
Raw food digestion is a sustained, energetically demanding process that the gut has to manage continuously for many hours after eating. The metabolic activity of a gut processing a large raw meal is substantial.
And it interferes with sleep quality in ways that cooked food digestion doesn't.
The faster pan, more complete digestion of cooked food, means the gut is least active during the night, allowing deeper and more restorative sleep. Research on sleep across species shows that humans sleep significantly less than other great apes of comparable size.
Approximately 7 to 8 hours for humans versus 9 to 10 hours for chimpanzees. One proposed explanation is that the quality of human sleep is higher. Humans spend more of their sleep in deep, slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, the stages most associated with memory consolidation and neural maintenance. The hypothesis is that faster digestion of cooked food reduced the nighttime metabolic burden of digestion,
allowing more efficient sleep that extracted more restoration from fewer hours.
Less time sleeping means more time available for the social and cognitive activities that distinguish human life. The time savings from cooking operated at both ends of the day. Less chewing time in the active hours, less sleep time in the inactive hours. Producing a daily time budget that was substantially larger than the pre-cooking equivalent. That expanded time budget is where human culture could develop.
The social consequences of cooking deserve their own extended examination.
Because they are among the most significant and least discussed effects of the transition. Cooking requires fire. Fire requires maintenance.
A significant investment of effort, even for experienced firemakers using friction methods.
The consequence is that cooking created a fixed location, the hearth, that groups returned to, organized their activity around, and defended against weather and predators. The hearth is not just a cooking technology.
It is an organizing structure for human social life.
Groups that cooked together required new forms of coordination. Who tends the fire? Who gathers the food to be cooked? How is the cooked food distributed?
These questions don't arise in a context where everyone forages and eats individually throughout the day, the way great apes do. They arise specifically in a cooking context, where food preparation is a communal activity with a temporal structure.
Before cooking, during cooking, after cooking.
That requires social coordination across that structure.